In a world where unseen battles rage between light and darkness, there are moments when heaven allows a glimpse into the truth that surrounds our souls. This is the story of one such moment, an encounter that shattered fear, awakened faith, and revealed the mysterious mercy of God in a way that leaves the heart trembling. It began on an ordinary night when silence filled the room, yet something holy was approaching. What unfolded next was not just an experience. It was a divine message, a reminder that heaven watches, guides, and protects us even when we cannot see it. This story is not just to be heard, it is to be felt. Today's story is about something so small, so simple, so ordinary that most people overlook it without a second thought. And yet, Padre Pio said this tiny act had the power to move the very heart of heaven. We're talking about a single Hail Mary, just one. Not a full rosary, not an hour of meditation, not a long, complicated prayer. Just one Hail Mary. If you've been following these stories, then you already know that Padre Pio lived with spiritual vision far beyond ordinary sight. He saw what others could not. Souls wandering in need, angels assisting silently, the suffering of purgatory, and the mysterious flow of grace that moves invisibly through the world. He witnessed the supernatural as naturally as most people notice the weather. Yet among all these extraordinary experiences, few things astonished him as deeply as the incredible power hidden inside this short, familiar prayer. Padre Pio once said, "If you understood the value of a single Hail Mary, you would recite nothing else for the rest of your life." It was one of those statements that people heard, nodded at politely, and then quickly forgot, until they saw how seriously he lived it. He prayed the Hail Mary constantly, while walking from one room to another, while hearing confessions, while suffering from pain, while resting briefly, even while bleeding. For him, the prayer was never just a string of words. It was, as he described it, an act of handing your heart to the Mother of God. Every Hail Mary, he said, is like placing a kiss into the hands of Our Lady. And she never keeps even one of them for herself. She brings them all to Jesus. But the deepest mystery behind his conviction began one quiet evening. Padre Pio was in the choir loft, praying silently before the Blessed Sacrament. A soft glow filled the chapel, and everything was still. According to one of the friars who was there, Padre Pio's face suddenly changed. He grew pale, his eyes filled with tears, and he looked toward an empty corner of the chapel, as though someone invisible was standing there. After prayer, the friar approached him gently and asked, "Father, what did you see?" Padre Pio hesitated, as if collecting himself. Then he answered, "A soul from purgatory." He paused again, took a deep breath, and added something the friar would remember for the rest of his life. "He came to thank me for a single Hail Mary, one prayer I offered long ago and had forgotten, but heaven had not." Padre Pio explained that earlier that day, he had been walking through the courtyard and whispered a distracted Hail Mary for someone who needed help. He didn't know who. There was no name, no intention, nothing specific, just a spontaneous moment of charity. That one small passing prayer became the very thing that pushed a suffering soul into the light of heaven. "He showed me the moment it touched him," Padre Pio said. "It was like a drop of cool water falling onto burning coals. Not relief from punishment, but relief from the sorrow of being far from God." That experience changed the way Padre Pio spoke about small prayers. From then on, he told his spiritual children that no prayer is ever lost, especially not one prayed with sincerity, even if it feels weak, rushed, or distracted. He explained it beautifully. The Hail Mary is like placing a candle into the hands of the Virgin. She decides where the light is needed. He reminded people constantly that Our Lady listens not to the perfection of our words, but to the intention behind them. "Do not pray only when you feel holy," he said. "Pray especially when you feel weak. Those are the Hail Marys that save souls." There is another story that reveals this mystery even more clearly. One afternoon, Padre Pio was hearing confessions. As a woman knelt before him, he suddenly looked over her head. His face softened with surprise, and then, very gently, he smiled. That almost never happened in confession. Then he whispered, "Go in peace. Your mother is in glory." The woman burst into tears. Her mother had died years earlier, and she had carried a heavy guilt for not praying more for her soul. Later, the friars asked Padre Pio, "Father, what happened? What did you see?" He replied, "I saw the soul of her mother. She told me she entered heaven because her daughter prayed one single Hail Mary for her, on a day when she felt alone." The friars asked when this had happened. "When she was a child," Padre Pio said. "She prayed it without thinking, a simple prayer of love, but heaven kept it." That was the mystery. A forgotten prayer from childhood had become the ladder that lifted her mother into paradise. Padre Pio said these things happened constantly, that many souls are saved by tiny acts of love that people barely remember. He explained, "Grace is not measured by size, but by love. A grain of wheat becomes bread, a drop of water becomes life, a single Hail Mary becomes salvation." He taught that the power of the Hail Mary flows from the name at its center, Jesus. The prayer, he said, is like a thread. Mary holds one end, Jesus holds the other, and the soul holds the middle. Even when prayed quickly, the prayer carries a hidden strength because it unites us with the humility of Mary, the woman who said yes on behalf of all humanity. Mary never forgets a soul who remembers her, Padre Pio said, even in a whisper. There is a famous testimony from a soldier who visited Padre Pio after the war. He described how, in the middle of a violent battlefield explosion, he instinctively shouted, "Hail Mary, help me!" He survived when many around him did not. Padre Pio listened quietly, then asked, "Do you know why you are still alive? Because your cry called your mother." "A Hail Mary," said. "In fear," he added, "is still a Hail Mary." The soldier asked if God even listens to prayers born from panic. Padre Pio answered, "Especially those. Panic is simply the heart breaking open." He believed that the simplest, most desperate Hail Mary, spoken in the darkest moment, becomes the brightest flame before God because it rises from pure need, not pride. Padre Pio also said that Our Lady uses the Hail Mary to reach souls who cannot be touched in any other way. Souls hardened by sin, souls dying without the sacraments, souls who push God away their entire lives. One Hail Mary, he said, can soften a heart at the very last moment of life. He once told the story of a dying man who had lived in bitterness and refused confession. His family begged Padre Pio for help. Padre Pio prayed one Hail Mary for him and asked Our Lady to intervene. Minutes later, the man, who had not prayed in 40 years, suddenly whispered, "Mother, help me." He asked for a priest he reconciled, and he died in peace. "It was not my prayer," Padre Pio said afterward. "It was Mary's presence inside the Hail Mary." He insisted that the prayer is not just devotional, it is a spiritual force. A soul cannot remain the same after a Hail Mary, he taught. It either rises or it trembles. To him, the Hail Mary held a double effect. It purified the one who prayed it, and it opened a path of grace for someone else. He even taught that many souls receive the grace of final repentance because of Hail Marys prayed decades earlier, by parents, grandparents, or even complete strangers. Mary collects them, he said. She knows when to use them. He described the Virgin as the treasurer of forgotten prayers, keeping every Hail Mary like a precious jewel until the exact moment it is needed. And when that moment comes, she uses it to save a soul who believes themselves lost. Never underestimate the smallest prayer, Padre Pio would repeat. In heaven, nothing is small. He often said that the Hail Mary doesn't just change the person who prays, it changes the world around them. Every time the prayer is spoken, he believed, something moves in the invisible realm. A soul receives comfort, an angel receives strength, a heart receives light. Because a single Hail Mary offered from the heart reaches farther than we can imagine, beyond time, beyond distance, beyond human limitations, straight into eternity. Padre Pio often said that Mary is never still. Whenever someone calls her, he explained, she runs, she does not walk. And the friars who lived with him came to believe these words not because they sounded poetic, but because they saw moments that made them tremble. One of the most powerful moments happened on a quiet morning in San Giovanni Rotondo. A young friar entered the choir, expecting to find nothing more than the soft echo of prayers. Instead, he saw Padre Pio standing completely motionless, his rosary hanging loosely from his hand. His eyes were open, but he was not looking at the crucifix or the tabernacle or even anywhere in the room. It was as though he was staring through the stone walls into another world entirely. The young friar felt something was wrong. He approached carefully and whispered, "Father, are you all right?" Padre Pio blinked slowly, returning to himself as if waking from a distant place. Then he raised a trembling finger and whispered, "Do not disturb them. They are rising." The friar, confused and frightened, asked, "Who is rising?" "The souls," Padre Pio said. "The ones freed by the Hail Marys prayed this morning." Later, he explained that he saw them like sparks, rising through a veil of silvery mist. Some rising slowly, some quickly, each carried by a light that felt almost like wind, and among them, moving with indescribable tenderness, was the Virgin Mary. Padre Pio said she was gathering the souls gently, taking them by the hand the way a mother takes the hand of a frightened child.
She takes each one, he said, not because they deserve it, but because someone remembered them.
He taught that when people pray the Hail Mary for forgotten souls, those who have no family, no friends, no one who thinks of them, heaven reacts immediately. Their sorrow softens, their longing becomes hope, their suffering is shortened. The prayer, he said, becomes a bridge under their feet. To Padre Pio, this was not symbolism. He saw it. He once told a young woman who asked if her prayers made any difference, "When you pray for someone who has died, your words fall on them like dew in the desert." He described Purgatory as a land of spiritual dryness, a burning hunger for the presence of God, a hunger deeper than any suffering on earth. A single Hail Mary, he said, is like giving them water that tastes of heaven. There was another incident that shook even the seasoned friars, men who had lived years beside miracles and still found themselves stunned. It was late at night. Padre Pio was walking through a dim hallway praying his rosary. Suddenly he stopped, pressed his hand to his heart, and gasped as though struck by a wave of overwhelming emotion. Tears filled his eyes. A friar rushed to him. "Father, what's happening?" Padre Pio whispered, "A soul has just entered paradise because of a Hail Mary prayed by a poor old woman who believed she had nothing to offer." Then, with tears on his cheeks, he added, "Heaven bends down lower for the humblest voices." He believed deeply that the poor, the lonely, the forgotten, the people who pray with simple, unpolished faith, those are the people who release the most souls from purgatory. God listens to the heart, he said, and the heart speaks most clearly in the Hail Mary. Padre Pio often spoke about the mysterious timing of prayer, not the timing measured in minutes or hours, but in the divine sense of eternity. He insisted that every Hail Mary becomes available to God exactly when it is most needed, even if prayed years later or years early. Once a man asked him anxiously, "Father, does it matter when I pray? What if I pray too late?" Padre Pio shook his head gently. "There is no too late with God," he said. "Your prayer today can save a soul yesterday." The man stood speechless. Padre Pio continued, "We live inside time. God does not. The Hail Mary you offer now becomes a grace placed into the moment God chooses." To him the Hail Mary was like a form of spiritual currency. Mary, he said, is entrusted as the banker of heaven's mercy, and she knows when and where every prayer is needed. No prayer is wasted. No prayer is forgotten. No prayer fails. He described the Rosary as a rope thrown towards souls who are sinking, and each Hail Mary is an additional knot, making the rope stronger, longer, easier to grasp. Many souls, he said, are saved because someone refused to stop praying. Padre Pio also believed in a mysterious exchange of graces after death. He taught that souls who enter heaven through our prayers become protectors of our families. Their gratitude, he said, is like a river. It flows without stopping. Once, a grieving mother came to him and asked, "Father, if my child is in heaven, will he help me?" Padre Pio answered softly, "He already has. He is praying for your family because you prayed for him. Heaven remembers." He called this mutual relationship between earth and heaven one of God's greatest gifts. "We are never alone," he said. "Every Hail Mary ties us to someone waiting for us in eternity." One of the most unforgettable testimonies came from a doctor who was present the night Padre Pio collapsed from exhaustion. They carried him to his cell, and even in the haze of weakness, his fingers kept moving over the rosary beads. The doctor asked him gently, "Father, why push yourself so hard? You need rest." Without opening his eyes, Padre Pio whispered, "If I stop, a soul may wait longer for light, and if even one Hail Mary can shorten that waiting, how can I rest?" Then he added, "Our Lady never sleeps." Among the friars, this phrase became legendary. Padre Pio believed Mary was always active, walking through purgatory the way a mother walks through a hospital at night, visiting each bed, touching each wounded heart. He described seeing her bending over certain souls the way a mother bends over a sick child, and every time, he said, she carried something in her hands. The rosaries and the Hail Marys offered by the living. She carries them like bread, Padre Pio said, and she feeds the souls with them. He insisted that Mary's greatest joy is bringing souls to her Son, especially those who believe themselves unworthy of heaven. She takes the prayers we give her, he taught, and she makes them beautiful. Toward the end of his life, when his hands shook too much to move the beads smoothly, the friars would guide his fingers along the rosary. Even when he could hardly speak, he whispered each Hail Mary with the same devotion he had as a young priest. One day a friar asked him quietly, "Father, what is the Hail Mary to you?" Padre Pio closed his eyes, thought for a moment, and said, "It is the key to mercy. It opens doors no one else can open." He believed that when a person dies, the Hail Marys they prayed throughout their life become like lanterns, lighting the dark places, guiding them through fear, surrounding them with hope. And for the souls still waiting for heaven, he said, the Hail Mary is like sunrise. He described purgatory as a place where time feels like longing, and heaven as a place where longing becomes fulfillment. And between the two, he said, stands Mary, carrying the forgotten prayers of her children. Padre Pio's last teaching about the Hail Mary was one of the simplest, yet one of the most powerful. He repeated it often, almost like a farewell message. Pray for the dead. Help them, love them. A single Hail Mary may be the moment they meet God. There was no drama in his voice when he said this, no exaggeration, no poetic flourish, only certainty, a certainty born not from theology books, but from what he had seen with his own eyes. For Padre Pio, the power of a single Hail Mary was not a theory. It was a truth he lived, truth he watched unfold over and over, a truth he trusted more than anything. And in the silence of his final days, when he could barely speak, the friars who cared for him heard him whispering the same words again and again. Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Hail Mary. It was the last prayer he ever said. The prayer he believed could save anyone. The prayer he believed could change eternity. The prayer he believed could open heaven.